Hello, everybody. I'm George from Ireland. Hello. Thank you for coming to the channel. I'm George from Ireland. This is about Alexander Perepilichny. Perepilichny's death is being looked into again, and he died on the 10th of November 2012. Um, since it's proven that Alexander Navalny died from having this frog skin poison, put into him somehow. Did he ingest it? Was he injected with it, or whatever, which causes people to stop aspiring and collapse or whatever? So causes death very, very quickly, and is very, very sure. Then they can be saved because of the toxicology tests which were run by various laboratories abroad using samples from him. Now, Perepilichny was somewhat a little bit similar to Alexei Navalny. So he's born in 1968 in Russia, and he went into business. Um, but some people thought these were somewhat shady businesses and so on. One of his closest associates, a Syrian Russian, was sanctioned by the US Treasury for allegedly being involved in trying to produce weapons of mass destruction in Syria. That's not Perepilichny himself, but yeah, he was in the financial sector, Perepilichny. But he was aware of large-scale defalcations going on in Moscow in the noughties. And remember, that was the zenith of relations between Western countries and the Russian Federation. It's a time not long after the Iraq War had started, the Chechnya conflict would be largely over, coming to the time when Medvedev served as president for just 4 years. The Russian economy was booming, and that was it. The Cold War was long over, so it seemed. So Russia was willing to cooperate in Afghanistan, not that they were fighting, but giving NATO armies the benefits of their experience out there in the 1980s. So a lot of people didn't want to hear all this about the massive scale corruption in Russia, about the tax rebate fraud and things like that. So he ran a company called Quartel Trading. He was very, very wealthy himself. He's a multimillionaire himself, Perepilichny. Anyway, but he moved to the United Kingdom in 2009. I don't know whether he got indefinite leave to remain. Don't think he applied for asylum. But he was aware of the Hermitage Capital Management fraud, whereby the Russian officials perpetrated a tax rebate fraud of $230 million, the biggest tax rebate ever paid in Russian history. That was paid out within 24 hours of the claim going in. The claim went in on Christmas Eve, and then money was paid on Christmas Day. Admittedly, Russians don't celebrate Christmas on the 25th of December, but things are still slowing down. Russia, which is notorious for the Byzantine complexity of its bureaucracy, for the incredible slowness of the way the state works, but this one was super fast, specifically because they're kickbacks to whoever the tax officials were. So Perepilichny, when he exposed all that, he decided he better leave the country because he gave some evidence to Swiss prosecutors who were investigating this, and Perepilichny realized he had to get the hell out of Dodge because of it. Anyway, so he was living in St. George's Hill, Weybridge, just a bit west of London, a very plush area. He visited Paris. He came back to the United Kingdom after 3 days in Paris. He went out to jog in this gated community, St. George's Hill. He was 44 years old with no health problems, and he suddenly dropped dead. Now, wow, this is quite extraordinary. So tests were run on him. Some people said there was a toxin in his stomach, but the autopsy was inconclusive, saying, well, doesn't prove he's murdered, doesn't prove he wasn't murdered. Notably, the autopsy did not say that he died of natural causes. Now, this possible poison that was there could have been from cardiac arrest, right? Partly because his life insurance company, Legal General, they want to find out his cause of death because they might not have to pay out. I don't know who the beneficiaries were. Okay. So Surrey police said there was no identifiable toxin. So there could be a toxin that wasn't identified. But now we know about this frog poison. Was that the one in him? I don't know. Anyway, so it's thought that he was on a death list from the Russian mob. And obviously there's a symbiosis between Putin's regime and Russian organized crime. I mean, it is a mafia state, as WikiLeaks said. Okay, it's suspected that Perepilichny was in contact with MI5 and MI6 before he died. And there are various documents to do this, which are not being published because the public interest immunity, as in it would be deleterious to national security if they were published. Okay, some Americans say that Perepilichny, yes, that he was giving information to MI6, and that either Putin or one of his right hand men gave the order for this wet operation, as in Perepilichny, to be killed. And we know that poison is the way they really like to go. There are many more examples of this. So it was not long after the murder of Alexander Litvinenko. It's not as blatant. It was a bit before the murder of Sergei Skripal, about 6 years earlier, and so forth. So Putin had crossed this line before, gotten away with it, saying, well, they can't prove it. And so what are they going to do? Do they really want to miss out on investment from Russia? All these super rich Russians from Russia with cash, like that documentary, coming and buying houses and putting their children into independent schools and buying clothes and jewelry and cars and everything else. No, they're not going to bite the hand that feeds them. So he thought he could get away with it. So obviously to murder him, but to terrorize anybody else who might tell the truth, who might expose the crimes of the Putin regime. So obviously I'm not certain that he was murdered, but it's just extremely likely the motive, the means, and the opportunity. But if he was poisoned, how do they get the poison into him? Do they put it in his food or in his drink? There has to be an inside job, someone has access to his house. Do they somehow stab it into him? But presumably no puncture wounds are found in him. And I mean, even very, very tiny, minute ones, because when Georgy Markov was killed with that ricin pellet, they had to examine it. There was this tiny puncture wound in the back of a leg. Someone with an umbrella, which functioned as sort of a gun, was able to fire it into the back of his leg. This thing just a millimeter across. So yeah, I don't know. The chance that he died of natural causes is very slender indeed. But yeah, so maybe this is reinvestigated. They might be able to prove what it was. It took 2 years to find out what really killed Alexei Navalny. So it wouldn't surprise me if this is it. The Ruskies would like to have a poison which is not detectable. Obviously, Novichok, in the sake of Skripal, was very detectable. And whatever they used is at polonium-210 against Litvinenko. That was so blatant, they left their traces all the way back to Moscow in 2006. So by 2012, whoever did it in a slightly more subtle way. The GRU, Glavanya Razvedka Upravlenia, the main intelligence directorate, they're military, and so their attitude is to kill the enemy. They do these things. They leave their fingers all over things. I mean, did the SVR ever do it? And perhaps they're a bit more cunning and discreet. But maybe we'll get to the bottom of it. It's just possible we'll never actually find out what happened to poor old Mr. Perepilichny. So I'd like to cycle over and film where it happened, but I'm not sure be able to get in there. I think it's still close to the public, the area where he died, which reminds me of another Georgian chap, I can't remember his name right now, who died in Leatherhead roughly the same time, although he's a bit older, seemingly in good health, and dropped dead. And he was someone who Putin didn't like. And was that murder as well? Again, we don't know, but it's highly suspicious. Thanks for watching my channel. Make sure you subscribe on Patreon, donate to PayPal, georgecallahan79@gmail.com. Goodbye.